When I was young, I had a silver fork and a silver spoon and a silver knife with which to eat, and my food was brought to me on a silver plate. My sisters had bronze forks and bronze spoons and bronze knives, and their food was brought to them on bronze plates. Later, when my father became rich, the bulb that dangled over the table was replaced with a crystal globe that could be turned on and off with a switch mounted on the wall, and that diffused the light into every corner of the room, so that even the holes out of which the mice emerged at night, and sometimes even in the day, were illuminated. At that time I was given a golden fork, and a golden spoon, and a golden knife, and my food was brought to me on a golden plate. And my sisters were given silver forks, and silver spoons, and silver knives, and their food was brought to them on silver plates. Near my house was a great forest, in which I could play in safety and without fear, because the bears and the tigers had been driven out many generations before by the first pioneers who had settled in that area and had foreseen my future advent. Also, not far from my family's estate was a village, the gates of which had signs that said, "Welcome," and "Love thy neighbor," and in the middle of which was a park, which the servants kept meticulously manicured and free of scorpions, so that I could run there and play even in my bare feet. A group of itinerant musicians came there every summer to play music for me. The music they played gave me goosebumps and made every hair of my body stand on end. It made me want to run away and hide and cry in terror of what would someday happen there. Apparently, however, the townsfolk enjoyed that music. It straightened up the backs of even the old men, who shuffled around with canes, looking for death, and caused them to remember the rage of youth and the glory of war. At the appropriate age, I commenced my formal education. At school, I was taught to add and subtract, and to multiply and to divide, and how to read. But because my mind was holy and pure, there were many things that I was forbidden to see, and many things that I was forbidden to think. Every morning we pledged our allegiance to a book and to several flags. I often wondered where their loyalty would lie if at some time in the future it was found out that the ideals represented by the flags no longer were compatible with each other or with that of the book. But I did not have to wait long to satisfy my curiosity. In my room was a golden chamber pot into which I would discharge the contents of my bowels upon waking each morning. The servants would then, by examining the taste and texture of my feces, determine whether I was receiving the proper nutrients in my diet. My sickness first spread to the servants, and from them it spread to the rest of my family, and to everyone in the village, and in the land around about the village, and even to the great cities along the coast, and to the lands of the barbarians across the sea. The villagers tore out the pages of their book that said love and kindness and peace, and highlighted and underlined the words hate and anger and abomination. They took down the signs at the entrances to the village that read "Love thy neighbor," and replaced them with placards inscribed with the words "Obey" and "Conform" and "Adhere to party rules." A sense of entitlement settled on the village, and safe spaces were created so that those with brown eyes could gather and socialize without being threatened by the gaze of those with blue eyes. People stopped greeting each other, as Good Morning and Merry Christmas had become microaggressions, and trigger warnings were placed on all products and at the entrances to all business establishments so that unpleasant memories could be avoided, and so that, for example, someone who had once suffered from a hangnail could be warned before entering a certain store in which fingernail clippers were sold. The park in the middle of the village became littered with broken beer bottles and hypodermic syringes, and the vomit and the feces of stray dogs. And the bears and the tigers returned to the forests. And the people said in their hearts, "We will ascend into heaven. We will exalt our thrones above the stars of God. We will sit also upon the mount of the congregation, at the summit of Mount Olympus. We will ascend above the heights of the clouds. We will be like the Most High God." When they arrived at the summit of the mountain of the gods, much to their surprise, they found the temples and the great halls empty, for the gods had long since abandoned them. In fact, they found no evidence at all that the gods had ever been there, or that justice had ever been meted out there, except a box that was labeled Hope, which, when they had managed to open, they found to be empty.